Welcome back to another episode of the Science of Winning podcast. Today, I want to talk about the impact of worrying and how worrying actually changes your brain. So many people these days are worrying about so many different things. People are worrying about the economy. People are worrying about inflation. People are worrying about just being able to pay rent or put food on the table. The younger generation is worrying about, do they have the ability to even afford a home? And now we have a massive amount of people in the workforce worrying about the security of their jobs because of AI. People are worrying everywhere. And I'm sure that if you're listening to this, you worry at some point in time or another. It's just a natural part of the human brain. It's virtually impossible for us to not worry. But the key thing here is to identify how much do you worry. And I'm going to get into this because it's important to worry. It's important to be aware of the stuff that you have going on in your life that isn't going the direction that you want. But you don't sit and worry too long because that doesn't help you create any solutions. And I heard it the best from someone in the past that said, if worrying actually worked, you wouldn't be worrying. So let's break that down. Yeah, if worrying actually created a solution, then you wouldn't be worrying anymore. You'd be done worrying. So worrying doesn't work because what we are doing is we are taking that energy and projecting it to the things that we don't want versus the things that we do want. So on the spectrum, and this is the spectrum I use with everybody that we work with, is either on one end you have empowering, on the other end you have disempowering. And the only difference is on the empowering side, you are actually making progress and moving towards your goals, the things that you want in life or your objectives. On the other side, disempowering, you're actually not moving towards those goals. Something is actually stopping you, hindering you, or slowing you down. And a big part of that is your mindset. And worrying is a core aspect of your mindset. It actually goes further than that. It actually impacts your physiology. It actually impacts your body. And I can't tell you how bad extended or extensive worrying is for your body, because your cells are not operating optimally when you're in a state of worry. So if you want to live longer, if you want to be healthier, you got to restrict how much you actually worry, because another term for worry is stress, right? So stress is okay as long as you keep it within certain boundaries. So what do we do instead of worrying? Okay, so here's some of the strategies or tactics that you can use. Number one, you have to identify how much you are actually worrying. Some people worry a few minutes every hour. Some people worry throughout the entire day. So you got to figure out how much of your time and energy is actually spent worrying. Because if it's a little bit, that's okay. So you got to take account of how much. Then you got to figure out, okay, the worrying that I'm doing, is it actually helping me in any shape or way? Even if it's for a little bit, are you actually coming up with positive solutions for the challenges that you have? Or are you just ruminating over the negative stuff? So what you got to do is you got to switch the worrying into positive solution focus. This is the way our mind works. Everything in our body and our mind is based on energy and information, hands down. This is how the universe works as well. And that energy and information is following where you put your attention and your focus. So if your focus is on the things that aren't working, your energy is going to that as well as all of the information that your brain is receiving or correlating has to do with that negative stuff or that disempowering stuff. So you're better off focusing on the stuff that you want. So yes, things aren't going right for you in your life, but what you got to do is you got to switch it over to the things that you want in life instead. So it's like the switching mechanism. Every time you start worrying, you got to flip it to what you want out of life, because that's the energy. That's the direction of the energy. That's the direction of the energy and information that you want. And that's where you come up with solutions. And I can share with you some of these studies on creativity, because I studied creativity for almost 30 years here, and the science behind that. And what they've identified is that it's very, very challenging for an individual to come up with what we call divergent thinking, or have divergent thinking, which is when you're actually brainstorming and coming up with a whole bunch of ideas to problems or solutions when they are in a state of negativity or in a state of worry. So this is brain science here. This is neuroscience that actually shows that if you want to come up with solutions, you can't do it in a state of worrying. So as soon as you start to worry, flip over to the thing that you actually want, not the thing that you don't want. and direct your energy there and direct your information, because that's the information that your brain is going to be picking up from the environment as well, the stuff that you want. On the opposite side, if you are putting your attention and your focus on the stuff that you don't want, your brain is picking up on all the information regarding and associated with the stuff that you don't want. And this is why worry is contagious. This is why when you worry about one thing, you start to expand it, extrapolate it, and start worrying about other things in your life. It's just a natural process that happens, because when you're in a state of worry, all of this other information that is not so good in your life, that comes to light even more. And so you just continue that and it becomes a momentum. So you got to be really good at shifting, and shifting almost immediately. So this is why focus is one of the most important skills that you can have, in the ability to shift your focus. Okay, so someone can be really focused, but they can be focused on the crappy stuff in life. So what you got to get good at is focusing on the good stuff, focusing on the things that you want versus the things that you don't want. And here's a simple tactic. If you are an individual that just feels like you have to worry, and this is one of the main reasons why people worry as well, because they feel that if they don't worry, they're going to miss out on something, or they haven't done enough. So with high performers who worry, that's probably the number one thing. The reason why, when I ask them, why do you worry? What is the benefit out of it? They worry because they feel that if they don't worry, they are ignoring their problems. Okay, so you are not ignoring your problems by not worrying. You have to identify the problem. Okay, so if you are completely avoiding the problem altogether, and you're putting your head in the sand and saying, I have no problems here, this situation is great, it's going to fix itself, I'm not recommending that. You have to acknowledge it, get the information from it, and then go into a state of being able to identify possible solutions and even opportunities in these areas. And I have to say, I believe it was Churchill that said, you got to find an opportunity in every crisis. And I believe in that fully 110%, because those challenges, those things that you're worrying about, are signs. They are signals for you that something in your life is not going right. So you got to take it as a sign. So just like if you were driving through an intersection and you saw an amber light, that is a warning sign that says, do not go through this intersection. And if you do, you got to be extremely careful, because you could get hit. The red light is a completely different warning sign that says, absolutely don't go through the intersection, because you are going to get hit. So these are things in your life. So we worry about the things in our life that aren't going very well. And we need to come up with solutions rather than focus on the things that are causing us to worry. And the other thing is, if you are going to worry, here's a simple technique. You got to restrict it so you can create specific worry time. So pick a time in your day. Could be the afternoon, could be the morning, although I don't recommend the morning unless you're really good at it and you can get it out of the way. Because the morning you want to reserve for your highest productivity, highest energy, when you are the most motivated and driven to get the most important outcomes throughout your day. So if you want to worry, you can do that later on. So pick a time of the day and take 15 minutes and just worry your heart and your mind out. Just worry as much as you can. Okay, you can go down that rabbit hole as much as you want, but you gotta restrict it to that 15 minutes. That's it. And after 15 minutes, you stop. And when people go through this exercise, it's pretty amazing, because what they find is that a lot of times they're so exhausted by worrying so much that they don't want to worry anymore. It's funny, because people do get tired of worrying, because it's boring, right? When you worry so much, it gets boring, and it's exhausting for the mind, and it's exhausting for the body. So try this one tactic and technique, and I'd love to hear your feedback in terms of how that works for you. Again, just to simplify, worrying does not help solve your problems. It is there to identify that something isn't going right in your life. You have to identify it, but then you got to flip your focus to the things that you want and project your energy in that direction, because you're far more likely to actually come up with those solutions.